Welcome to Echoes of the Hunt. I'm Joe. Today I'm sitting down with my cousin Eric. This episode isn't just about hunting or the mountains or rifles. It's a metaphor for something bigger. 2 different paths, 2 different lives, both pulling us back to the same place. He went into the Army, to gunsmithing school, to the Appalachian Trail, and now co-owns Spirit of Kalash. We're talking challenge, discipline, health, and the way the outdoor keeps teaching you no matter where you end up. Let's get into it.
If you couldn't tell, Joe got all of the height genes, and I'm the normal manlet size. So we are related, believe it or not.
So growing up, you never really hunted?
Not really,
Not
no.
really.
Couple times.
After high school, you went into the Army.
Mm-hmm.
After that, you went and did gunsmithing at Pennsylvania Gunsmithing School. Hiked the Appalachian Trail, did some high peaks.
Yep.
And then now you partially own Spirit of Kalash.
Mm-hmm. Yep. I build AKs now.
How's that going for you?
It's going all right. I think one of the big things, like whenever you try to make a product, it should be kind of the culmination of your prior experiences, because otherwise you take one experience, there's going to be a lot of people with that experience. You know, you take 2 specific experiences, you're going to drop it quite a bit. But like by the time you get to all of your individual experiences, like that makes it so that you do start to have a pretty unique perspective. And so, you know, doing all the backpacking, being in Ranger Regiment, going to gunsmith school where we focused on a lot of bolt actions and things like that, that when you combine it together gives you a different way of looking at things. And I think that's what allowed me to bring something different to the market. Not necessarily better, but more that it's catered to somebody more with my background, is the best way I can put it.
What actually pushed you towards the military after high school?
Well, as you know, our side of the family, almost everybody was in the military the generation above us. Our grandfather was a Pathfinder in the Marines. We had a smattering of Marine Corps, Army, Air Force, it was pretty common. I think it's generally like if you're able to, I feel like in our family you do.
Yeah.
And so especially by the time high school ended, I wanted to get away from home. And I liked the idea of a challenge. You see, I kind of went to each branch and I looked at what they had for like the challenging things. So like I went to the Marine recruiter and asked about recon. I wasn't necessarily interested in SEALs. I did go to the Navy just to keep my options open, ask about a SEAL contract. And I was very lucky that when I went to the Army recruiter there was a former Ranger. And so he did a lot to guide me into understanding the mindset that I needed to have. And I think it tied in too with, you know, I was an Eagle Scout. I did mountaineering before the Army. And so it kind of all tied in together.
Didn't you also get some kind of award to get you promoted in the Army as well?
So I don't know if this changed because there was recently an announcement with the Department of War now that they're splitting with Boy Scouts. But Eagle Scout, you can get a promotion in the military, at least in the Army. You can get a promotion when you enlist.
That's really cool.
It is. And there's a lot of skills for the Army that you can learn in Boy Scouts. You know, like land nav, how to backpack correctly. Like those are pretty important skills that you learn beforehand.
Honestly, I was only in the Boy Scouts for maybe 2 years.
Yeah. It's hard to get through Cub Scouts, man. It's like if you really are into the outdoors, like Cub Scouts, they tame it down a little bit for little kids. And that could be really boring to some kids because, like, if you're like, I want to go outside and I want to go camping and I want to do all this, Cub Scouts isn't quite that yet, really, until you get to Weeblos, right? And that's the transition to Boy Scouts where you start actually doing the Boy Scout things.
Gotcha.
Yeah. It's tough to get through that.
I don't think I made it that far.
No, it's tough to get through that because, yeah, there are some times where you're like, I really don't want to do crafts.
No, I didn't want to do crafts.
Yeah. But, you know, once you get into that like 5th grade 6th grade, when you transition into Boy Scouts, you finally start doing actual scouting.
So you get past the Army.
Mhm.
All right. And you start doing these high peaks.
Yeah.
Was that, I know you probably did a lot of that trucking and stuff in the Army, but what was your motivation behind the high peaks and the Appalachian Trail?
So, especially coming out from special operations. So, first of all, I'm a very average body performance, but especially coming straight out of high school and being surrounded by dudes that are borderline freaks of nature, physically, mentally, you just get surrounded by extremely driven people, and you kind of take that for granted because, especially when you go straight from high school, you just think that's what adults are like now, right? And so you get surrounded by incredibly high performing people. And then when you get out and you go to college and you're like, oh, that's not normal. So I struggled to find something where I was surrounded with similar minded people. And I found that with jiu-jitsu, mixed martial arts. I had a really good gym, Ultimate Athletics Syracuse. They were a good transition point for me. And I was in STEM because I was going to school for engineering science at the local community college. And so there was a lot of environmental science majors there. And we hit it off. And so we were like, hey, let's do a high peak. I was like, okay. I was a little butthurt after I got out of the Army for a little bit. Didn't want to do that kind of stuff, but it's tied into what I did, So like in high school and Boy Scouts, we did all kinds of backpacking. So I was like, okay, and one of the things that I recognized was personality wise, when I would achieve something, I wouldn't savor it. I would just go, okay, now what's next? And so like a lot of the bigger achievements up in my life up to that point, I didn't appreciate. I didn't take the time to appreciate what I had done. I was only worried about what was next. And so I almost saw, so in the Adirondacks, there's 46 high peaks. I saw it as like, okay, this is 46 chances for me to savor what I had accomplished. And I'd like to say that one of the cool things about the mountain is the mountain doesn't care how angry you are. You can be pissed off and rushing through it. The mountain's going to win. Like you're not beating it. Like you're going to be exhausted by the time you get to the top. And you can only do that so many times before you start to mellow out a little bit, and, that was what the high peaks were for me. They were a way to process in a very calm, quiet way. Also with a mixture of people. This is one of the things now that I tell guys that are starting to get out is when you're in the mountains or like the Appalachian Trail, right? You can't close yourself off to people with similar backgrounds. Like one of the coolest things about being in the backcountry like that is almost everybody you're meeting is interesting. They might have a different background, right? But they're usually interesting in some way. That's why they're out at the edges of humanity like you are. So the deeper you get into the backcountry, like the cooler the people you meet. And if you just cut that off because they don't have a military background, you miss out on so many good conversations and so many good people to meet. And so that mixture of being able to calm down, process things, and interact and share experiences with people with both similar background and different background allows you to have a lot better perspective. That may not have what got me into the peak bagging, but that's definitely why I stayed and realized after the Army that it was important.
Do you plan on eventually doing any more peaks like out west or?
Yeah. So right now, I don't remember the exact number and Mike's going to roast me for it. I'm somewhere in the high 70s for the Northeast 111. So that's all the 4,000 foot peaks in the Northeast. There's actually 115. It's a long story with mountain lists. They add, they subtract. It's called the Northeast 111. I'd like to finish that while I'm in the Northeast. Eventually, I would like to finish the Triple Crown. So that's the Appalachian Trail, the Continental Divide Trail, and the Pacific Crest Trail. And long term, we'll see if my back and stuff can keep up with it. But I'd like to do the highest peak on each continent.
That sounds really cool.
It does.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, and it's like, okay, how do I integrate that need for challenge while also being able to appreciate the journey and not just being worried about the end goal?
That's, yeah.
And that's through hiking, right?
Yeah.
It takes months. So if you can't wait for the end, like you're going to have a rough few months.
Mm-hmm.
You got to be able to actually take each day. And, what's cool is that we've both been able to go and explore in our own areas.
True.
So like there's a ton of stuff that you've gotten to do that like I've never done. I've never done any out west hunting. And that sounds badass.
Out west hunting was very fun, man. The sights you get to see and climbing some of the mountains and
yeah.
But my mountain climbing is a lot different than your mountain climbing.
Well, yeah. But you know what? I honestly, so like, I think a lot of the thing for me hunting out west, and this is ignorant, right? Because I don't have the background. I think if we grew up out west, I'd probably be a lot more into hunting.
You probably would because you grow up hunting. I mean, you really do. And I think it's more taught in schools out west than it is here.
Yeah.
I know there are several schools in Montana that actually teach hunter education in schools.
Really?
Yeah.
I mean, that's a good skill to have. Yeah, that's cool. That's a core skill to have, especially out there. It's a cheap way to put meat in the freezer,
And there's guide schools too, like college guide schools out west. I mean, there's some sprinkled throughout the East Coast, but you're not getting the main guide schools.
It's so tough. Like, I understand why there's guides on the East Coast, because if you don't have property, you need somebody.
Right.
But yeah, I don't know. And so here's my question, because you've hunted on both coasts. Is there a way to keep the adventurous aspect of these hunts on the East Coast?
If you're coming in from maybe a different place, like I know I go down to South Carolina a lot.
Mm-hmm.
It is adventurous. Maybe if you're hunting in a different area or if you're going to a new location to hunt a different animal, or I've always wanted to hunt in Maryland for the red stag, Sitka, deer.
Okay.
That might be like an adventurous, but I think it's way more cool to go out west and hunt mule deer and elk.
Well, and that's what I see. Like, there's so many similarities with hunting and backpacking and mountaineering, right? Like, you would think that you wouldn't get along just because of the current political climate. But as long as that's not your whole personality, like there's so many people you interact with. And I feel like it's kind of people have a similar mindset with backpacking where it's like the East Coast has shorter peaks. It's more populated, but you can make it just as adventurous by immersing yourself in a place you haven't been before, getting to know the people, not being worried about how you do things where you're from, but just seeing what people do there, like the food, what people do for fun. Like there's similarities, but there's definitely differences.
I mean, when we go down south, we don't focus on like the northern type food. Like, I mean, there's barbecue joints.
Yeah. I mean, that's one of the best places about going anywhere is trying the new food.
Yeah.
I mean, sometimes you can go wrong. You go to different continents and you're like, no, I picked the wrong thing on the menu.
I can't fly, so I can't go to different continents.
Sail you. Yeah, that's the thing that I'm like, I wonder about, because I imagine there's a little bit of snobbery with the West Coast, just kind of like how there is with mountain climbing, just because it's like, it's so much more epic. The scale is so much bigger out West. And so I wondered, and like, oh, you sit in a tree stand every weekend for a month. It's like, I backpacked 80 miles and shot across the valley, I was just curious if you see a similar thing.
So when I was out west too, the different times you can either go out and sit under a tree like we did.
Mm-hmm.
It's pretty much the same as going out back and sitting in a tree stand.
Just better scenery. Yeah. Yeah, I could see that, but there's so many places in the Northeast that have great scenery too.
Like the Adirondacks, like George.
Oh, yeah. Like, man, I almost stopped my through hike because of how beautiful the whites were. I was like, man, I almost want to just peak bag up here. Like, I can't wait to go back to New Hampshire and finish those peaks because the whites are awesome.
We drove through there going to Salem, Massachusetts a couple years ago, and that was some nice territory up there.
Yeah. Yeah. And then, of course, you know, you go up to Maine. That's beautiful up there, too, you know. So we went when I was very young. I don't really remember it. And that's one of the funny things, right? Is when you're like, I was in Maine for weeks, but you're like, you look at where I was in Maine and it's this little strip, you know, or even like, you know, Virginia, you're like, I walked 550 miles in Virginia. But then if you look at the state, like what I experienced percentage wise is so small, you know, it's like Maine, for me, Maine was just these, and New Hampshire to some degree, these crazy steep notches in between mountain ranges.
Well, it's crazy how fast Maine can go from flat to steep.
Like I mean, they call it the hardest mile on the AT, but the Mahoosic Notch in Maine, you know, that's what I think of when I think of Maine, is these just constant up and downs of a few thousand feet at a time, you know. And I really haven't spent as much time on the coast. I'd like to, because, you know, Acadia and all those places are beautiful.
I think I've spent more time on the coast than in the mountains because, as you know, this body isn't made for mountains. And of course, we go down the Collins Low Country Hunting Club hunting hogs. And that's pretty much low country, coastal, next to Charleston.
So the only pig hunting I've done is in Fort Benning, because you can get tags really easy, and it's just like everywhere else down south. It's nuisance, so it's like, kill as many as you can, just let us know so we got population numbers. So like my hunting experience with pigs is walking around the woods with an FAL, and I guess that's not too far off. You know, people now are shooting with ARs and that kind of stuff, but it's just funny to think about, like, if you go out west with an FAL, it's like you're a psycho. You know, it's like, hey, it's a 308. There's could be a lot of pigs out here.
Well, you're not far off. In Texas, they hunt ARs out of helicopters.
I got back from the Army. I was going to college. And as you know, in New York, really not firearm friendly at all. And so I had gotten into guns because, again, being surrounded by these dudes that are really good at what they do, and seeing the difference between, at that level, like a firearm that's just generally set up and it's a firearm that like is so well set up for that person that it almost becomes like an extension of them. I was like, I think I can do that. I think like being able, I almost liken it like when I see a high performer. You remember I used to work for Don Cunningham.
Yeah.
He was an old farrier, right? And he would watch the horse move and he would take notes. He'd have his little notepad, take notes. And then he would look at how that horse was moving and he would be like, okay, these are the corrections we need to make this horse move correctly. And I almost, with a high performer, I like to take that approach with my firearms, you know? And so I was like, okay, I can have the eye for like what right looks like when a guy gets it set up. And I had this ability, and in New York, it was just completely not acceptable, which was hard in its own way, you know? And so I looked up gunsmith schools because I'm like, you know what? I think I can do something valuable here. And so I started Pennsylvania Gunsmith School right after I finished in college, right before COVID started. So that was interesting. But at the time, Pennsylvania Gunsmith School was much more focused towards bolt action rifles. Me, being me, was like, well, I don't completely want to work on that. So we were messing around with a bunch of different stuff, FALs, AKs, whatever we could get our hands on that I thought was interesting. So I still got that full training in bolt action rifles, both like traditional wood stock from a block, you know, doing bluing, doing painting, different types of metal preparation for whatever customer, because they're they don't know where you're going to go after school. So they want to teach you a little bit of everything. Learned how to make my own stocks. You learn basic machining, and then you go to advanced machining where you're doing chambering, custom barrel profiles, muzzle threading. And so, I built those 300 PRCs I built, which ironically now my one buddy that I built the 300 PRC for, I mean, he's gotten all kinds of stuff with it now. He's gotten at least one bear. He's gotten a few, I think he's gotten elk with it. He's gotten deer with it. I mean, this dude's been going all over
really
hunting with it.
Town with it.
Yeah. Yeah. So it's cool. It's like I built it for him. He wanted to be able to do both with it. So the thing is ridiculously heavy. It's a very Ranger meathead gun, but an aluminum chassis. And that's kind of where I lean towards. Like, that's more my interest. Not that I can't appreciate like a well-made woodstock gun, but like I could appreciate art without wanting to make it, Yeah. And so I built, all these different Cold War era military firearms. That was really what interests me, like the aesthetic and the technology. And so I was able to experiment there as long as I got what I needed to get done, right? And it's awesome because they've really revamped a lot of their curriculum now to where, they teach, and now we help consult with them on doing build classes for the students. So they learn how to build AKs and stuff. So the school is really modernized quite a bit on what they're focusing on. So it's an interesting opportunity. Like, if you have that desire to pursue it, you do learn a lot of a little different things. Like, you're not going to leave there the foremost expert on manufacturing, just like any trade school, right? But you're going to learn the core essentials. And as long as you take the curriculum seriously and do it and actually read the reference material that they're giving you and stuff, right, you're going to be able to work through problems that you would get once you get employed wherever in the firearms industry.
So you're saying that you would never work on a bolt action rifle?
Oh, no. Honestly, now, like, AKs are so all over the place with part standardization, and I'm doing so many different things to mess with them. It's almost relaxing to work on bolt guns now because they're so easy comparatively. Like, not that there's not an art form to a good bolt action gun, right? But like the simplicity and the parts that I'm dealing with, there's so many less parts going on, so many different less things going on with a bolt action rifle that it's almost refreshing to work on. But my tendency goes towards precision rifle setup. So like PRS, extended long range stuff, or like tactical bolt action rifles. That's fun to me. Again, because I could put these in the hands of dudes and see what they're able to do with it. And you're like, yes.
So I know at one point you were saying that you were doing classes for students.
Mm-hmm.
And I know at one point you also said that you were doing classes for, I think it was like the police departments.
It's something we offer. We're still trying to get it out there. One of the things is that depending on the academy you go to, you might not get the exposure to different types of firearms. And unfortunately, the reality is where we're at, a lot of things like AKs are proliferating from south. So down south, they're a lot more spun up, right? But up north, for several different reasons, right, they're starting to get exposed to these things and they don't necessarily have the experience. And so it's like, hey, if we can show this stuff to you so the first time you're seeing it isn't when it's pointed at you, I think that's a valuable experience. And so it's something that I would like to be able to help out with. We could bring our stuff and show you, let you experience it, see what the capabilities are so you know what you're up against. And even for civilians, right, we can do foreign weapons familiarization courses for people, which sometimes, maybe you're not super interested in it, but you've never had your hands on that kind of stuff. And it's cool to be able to have it all in one place, even if it's not necessarily your thing. It might be your thing for a weekend and it's cool,
It's not always like my thing because I'm usually a bolt action guy, but it is always cool to shoot.
Exactly. And that's what the big thing for us is, educating, equipping, and empowering. So like, I want you to be confident in whatever firearm that you're handling, whether it's a bolt action or a random foreign weapon that you never had your hands on. Like the more exposure you have, like the more empowered you feel, like you're not scared of it. I'm not one to put up classes where we're just blasting stuff. I want you to be confident when you pick it up. And even if you haven't picked up something before, you've had enough exposure to different types of firearms that you're not scared of it. And I think that's a big thing with these Cold War era firearms, right? They look scary.
That's the other thing I was going to ask you. Are you bringing any history into these AKs?
Yeah. Like nothing happens in a vacuum, right? So one of the most important things, especially when I'm building our own AKs, right? We have to sit down and we have to look and we have to say, okay, what is a doctrinal choice? So what design features on this are based around how their army does things? What are engineering decisions? Like what are functional reasons why they did this? What are economical decisions why they did this? Did they do this because of cost cutting? So those are all things we have to look at, and you're not going to understand those decisions they made if you don't know why they made the decisions. So a big part of understanding that is knowing, like going back and reading the histories on these militaries and where they were operating and what they were up against. So what were they trying to counter? And that was like a big part of my modernization program for the AK. I was like, okay, so what here is the functional, reliability decisions, right? What were they worried about here where they decided for the quality of soldier they were having, conscripts, right? Probably not a long life expectancy, not a lot of training investment. What made sense to just cut cost-wise, right? Because why waste the money when they're not going to be able to utilize it? And so that was a big part for me. I was like, okay, well, we're as Americans, right? We have an individual firearms culture that's focused on marksmanship. We invest a lot more into our individual soldiers, right? With training. And so they're able to utilize a more accurate weapon. Now you could make the argument that the least trained you are, the more accurate you want it, right? Because tolerances stack. So you might have a 4 MOA gun if you're a 1 MOA shooter. If you're a 4 MOA shooter, it's not a 4 MOA gun anymore. Right. So you could make the argument that the worse shooter you are, and that all goes into people like to focus on the individual firearm, but you're not walking around in a conflict by yourself.
That is true.
Right. So you need to look at the bigger picture for these things.
And what was this 800-yard shot you were telling me about earlier?
So me as a manufacturer, right, I want to show you that you don't have to worry about the accuracy of your firearm. Are you going to shoot 800 yards with your 5.56 AK? Probably not. But do you know that it's capable of it? Yeah. I personally would rather know I'm the limitation on my equipment, not the other way around. And there's other things that make it more applicable, right? So we're worried. The big thing with combat arms is about 4 MOA, right? 3-4 MOA. And the idea is that's a man-sized target out to a reasonable distance if you have a full man-sized target to shoot at. So what happens when there's not a full man-sized target? What if he's hiding behind something? Well, now, if you are capable of shooting that well, it's handy to have something that's a little more accurate.
Definitely.
Yeah. And so that's my mentality is I'm building for people that are able to utilize it. And even if you can't shoot that well yet, because you can always get better, you are confident that the rifle's not going to be the weak point. And so that's why what we're like, okay, well, what's the easiest way to show that? It's like, all right, well, let's shoot 800 meters with the AK to show you, yeah, we can do this. And we've had a few different people try it out. That same day, I had my assistant builder out there trying, and he's getting headshots at 600 consistently, right? He has prior training, right? I didn't just give somebody the gun and they're just magically able to shoot a head-sized target at 600, but he's able to, which good luck doing that with most other AKs.
So if somebody wants to purchase a AK, where can they do that, or how can they order?
So right now, I'm still working on the initial production. They will be available at grukamanufacturing.com when they are ready. And then one of the benefits of this current generation of improvements is they are backwards compatible with normal AKs. So one of the reasons why I made this generation of design the way I did is it uses the most off-the-shelf parts we can so that we can retrofit rifles that you may already have. And that's a good thing for governments too, right? Instead of buying new rifles, let's retrofit the ones we already have. So we're still getting some of the things ironed out, that you do with a first production. But once they are available, we'll make announcements on Spirit of Clash V4. I will on my personal Instagram, Eric the Smith. And we'll have to put all of the underscores in there because you will not find us if you don't type it exactly. But yeah, that we'll have them online. And there's a few guys that are interested in acting as dealers. And once we get stuff out to them, we'll blast them out as well too. People may or may not know you have a lot of things that you've had to deal with health-wise. Like
I've had a lot to deal with health-wise.
yeah. Severe epilepsy, things that like in austere environments are a big deal.
Yeah, they are. I mean, hunting in like out west, and a couple of times I've had ankle surgeries, and like it was like a few weeks after getting out of a cast, I was limping around trying to get out.
So like somebody like me, I'm getting ready to have a neck fusion, and it's not going to get better. It's going to get worse. I mean, I'm going to do my best to get better, right? And maintain it. But like you have been doing this a lot longer. And so what are your recommendations for somebody that has had to deal with significant health problems, like to be able to get out here and still do it?
Take your time. Be patient.
Like, do you plan that? So obviously you plan that.
I plan ahead. Definitely plan ahead. Like with all my medicines, I plan at least a week, maybe 2 weeks ahead in medications.
Okay.
I definitely because I have epilepsy and I get severe headaches. And one of my things that helps me is I have to wear a hat over my head because I have a big ass scar on my head. It's arthritis that sets in my head. And I wear that hat and it usually takes care of it. So I make sure definitely to plan ahead and take my meds.
Because that's something that, like to people who really want to do it, but are like, I'm really messed up.
I mean, and as I get older too, Eric, I feel it. Like, I mean, I don't show my scar on screen or nothing like that, but I can feel the arthritis setting in my ankles. I can feel it setting in my head. The last time I was at the doctor's, they told me I had arthritis of an 80-year-old.
Yeah.
And it just, you definitely got to plan ahead.
Yeah. That's something that's interesting to me, right? Like that's its own skill set. Like it's one thing to be completely healthy and undertake it, but like I imagine like your lodging, your travel, like medevac plans, like you have to have that all figured out.
Sat phone.
The sat phone. Yeah, that's becoming a lot more popular. Like there's a lot more people that will have the Garmin beacons that once a day you can say I'm okay or send a SOS. Now, do you have, like every state's different, right, with the rescue policy?
So I'm not 100% sure what New York's rescue policy is. I know that on my iPhone, I'm always tracked by my wife and my mom. So when I'm in the woods, I always text and make sure that I'm in the tree. And when I'm down, I text and say that I'm in the tree or out of the tree. And then I come up and I park my truck at the top of the hill and then I drive back down. So that's one way that I'm actually, now I'm not walking up to the top or walking all the way back to my tree stand. I'm driving to the top of the hill and then walking back down. So it's saving my ankles a little bit, but.
Yeah, because that's something I think that you could provide a lot of value with because you have several years dealing with this.
Yeah, it's no walk in the park.
Yeah, exactly. And that's really daunting for people to get started with. If it's something you want to do, like even hiking and backpacking, like that's pretty physically intensive, you know?
That's nothing I could do.
Well, and you know what? I've met a lot of people that I think you figure out how to make it work.
Yeah.
You may not do it at the same pace, but like if you want to do it, I think it's big to let people know you can make it work.
There's a will, there's a way. Basically.
Yeah. Like it might require more support or more planning, but it is possible, you know? And that's why I was here again, because of the similarities, right? Like for hunting, like your considerations are going to be very similar to somebody who's looking to get into backpacking with disabilities for sure. Because that would be something interesting for me to watch and see like little tips and tricks, you know, like I could tell you how to take care of your feet, you know, like, and if you've been out in the woods, you're like, ooh, yeah, that's helpful. But like for me, it's like there's stuff I haven't even thought about yet, you know.
Yeah.
You know, I've kept like doxycycline or maybe like pain medication when I'm in the deep backcountry in case I get a tick bite, you know, the doxycycline for Lyme disease until I can get into town, or like a pain pill if I snap my leg in the middle of nowhere. But like I've never long-term planned like going in needing medication. And like that makes resupplies a lot harder. Like, because you need to have that medication.
How far were you, like, in some stops between towns on the trail?
It really depends on your pacing. I would say the longest stretch that you're between towns is the 100-mile wilderness in Maine. So if you're a northbounder, that's the last thing you do before Katahdin. But if you're a southbounder, that's your first big thing. So northbounders get through it pretty quick because you've already done over 2,000 miles. So it's like, whatever. But for southbounders, they're there for a while because they're just getting started.
I don't remember, though. Did you do the south in the fall, or how did you do that?
So I did what's called a flip-flop. Because of gunsmith school, I graduated in May. And so my hiking partner and I started in the beginning of June. So I did what's called a flip-flop, which is where you start somewhere in the trail and you hike north, because Katahdin has a weather cutoff date where they'll just close it because it's not safe anymore. So you'll start on pace to get to Katahdin in time, and then you drive immediately back to your starting point and hike south, so that when it's colder, you can get through the south and you're not going to miss out on any mileage. And in my luck, I got back to my starting point in Hurricane Henri. Yeah. So it was pouring. That year was rough. I'm sure it's like that most years, but yeah, I had a few hurricanes and like 6 tropical storms on trail, which is unfortunate. Eventually you kind of get a little feral. And so you're just like, whatever, I'm wet. Like, as long as I keep my feet dry so I don't get trench foot, you know, like whatever. But yeah, that's that. But to me, like those resupplies and stuff, that gets trickier with prescription medication.
Yeah, and especially traveling. Like I have it's like a foldable, it's almost like a binder, but it's made out of mesh, and I put like little pill baggies in it, and it folds up, and it's like 2 weeks worth of meds. But I take 14 in the morning, probably like 16 at night. Most of them are prescription, and then some vitamins, but that's what I do.
And do you do anything special to keep them like like, do any have to be like temperature stable or like water? Obviously, you put them in a waterproof bag.
In a waterproof bag.
Yeah.
And then I have a boat, like a boat container that is actually waterproof that I put in like my Ativan. And then I have my magnet for my VNS device. And I put that kind of stuff in there.
So are there, like, with your device, are there like any extra considerations in the backcountry?
Not in the backcountry.
Okay.
Like if I was to go through an airport, I would have to be specially checked.
Right, because you can't go through the detector.
But not in the backcountry. I don't have any special
like things you have to worry about.
Yeah, things I have to worry about. The only thing that I would worry about is getting it checked prior, to make sure the battery life is good. Yeah, because it lasts for about 4 to 6 years. I just would want to make sure that it's
because it's not a common thing to have yet, right? It's still kind of experimental.
It's not experimental anymore. It's approved, but not a lot of people have them.
Yeah, I was going to say, so the chances of you coming across a medical professional in a random place that is aware of what your device is. Homeboy's got a pacemaker for his brain in his chest, if you didn't know. So kind of specialized.
Yeah.
So like if you go to a rural medicine provider, the chances of him having seen that before,
Likely none.
So that's an interesting point, like making sure everything's good to go with your healthcare team before going, like, okay, we're good to go. I've gotten everything checked.
I know I can't fly overseas, but that would be another point too.
Yeah.
Like overseas.
Okay. Interesting. So temperature, that's fun. Well, your body's keeping it the normal temperature. I'm like, man, that if it gets too cold and your battery starts draining, but your body's keeping it.
Yeah, I mean, it's right there. And
yeah. I didn't even think about that, but batteries don't last long in the cold. Yeah. Yeah, that's something I've always wondered, because that's a big undertaking every time to get the trip going, you know?
What? So you're having neck surgery?
Yeah, I'm getting a fusion. I've hurt my back quite a few different ways. And I have a few discs that are borderline. And I had a little bit of a jujitsu incident that kind of pushed it over the edge. And,
I mean, I know fusions are never fun because I have my both ankles fused, but
yeah,
I can never imagine your neck being fused.
Well, I'm lucky it's at the base of my neck, so it's not supposed to take a ton of my range of motion. But like, obviously, you know, from your fusion, like I know it's gonna hurt every time it gets cold.
Yeah,
yeah, that's something I mean, I used to be,
but I know you hurt anyway, so
yeah, it's like yeah. I'm going to hopefully feel better after the fusion. But like, that's something that when I was a kid, I didn't dress warm. I was so used to being in the cold. It's like a t-shirt and jeans all year, maybe a coat, but it's like not anymore.
It's your knitted sweater.
Yeah, not anymore. You know, I dress up. Being cold's against my religion now. But yeah, that's a big deal for people. Like if you're trying to get up and do something like that and you've always wanted to do it, I can imagine that's a daunting task.
Yeah, I mean, I see that, and I see a lot of people wheelchair accessibilities now.
Mm-hmm.
I actually have a friend in a wheelchair that hunts, and I think he's out of Georgia, and they actually make wheelchair accessibility tree stands, and it's almost like an elevator lift, and you take your chair out to the lift, and you get put in, and you strap in, and you go up.
Interesting. Yeah. I mean, that'd be huge.
And they got the track chairs, of course.
Yeah, so you can be off-roading. Yeah. That's, I mean, like, I've already done it before. And so I'm like, okay, what do I need to change? But if I've never done it before, I'm like, yeah, it's a lot going on. That would be super helpful to people. I would make more videos on that kind of stuff. Yeah. Because that's like the thing with a through hike that you don't get with other types of things is when you live it every day, you pick up all kinds of stuff that you would never pick up doing it for a weekend or even for a week. Like the amount of weird things that you figure out over the course of several months that are so helpful, but you would never come up with it on your own unless you had done that. Like that's a big hurdle to jump for people. That'd be cool. Echoes of the Hunt Accessibility Podcast.
That's pretty much it for today's episode. Before we wrap up, I'm giving the mic over to Eric so he can tell one last story from the trail. It's a good one. After he's done, we'll close it out.
Okay. I ever told you about the time that I was involved in a reverse petting zoo?
No, what's a reverse petting zoo?
It's where the animals come and pet you. In this case, it was a black bear in a lean-to right north of the Grayson Highlands in Virginia. So I met another former ranger. He was in the 2nd Ranger Battalion, Micah Faustin. And so anytime you're in a lean-to that's accessible, right? Regular people that aren't hikers come in and they leave trash. Well, as you know, where there's trash and food, there's bears. And so we heard something hit the bear box and you're like, whatever. So after a while being in the woods, right, you just get used to the fact that squirrels, they're always making noise. So I hear noises. I'm like, hey, squirrel's throwing acorns at us or something, like whatever. It feels like I hear something walking around, but I'm keeping my eyes closed because I'm like, no, I don't want to wake up. It's stupid squirrels again. You go to sleep. Now, meanwhile, Micah has sleep paralysis next to me, and he sees a black bear leaning over me, just staring at me in my sleeping bag. And then, paralyzed the whole time, he sees the black bear slowly come over to him and start looking at him. And finally, it reaches over and just paws his sleeping bag and be like, what's inside there? And he snaps out of it and he starts swearing. And I wake up and I'm like, nope, that's a bear. Also starts swearing. And you know how black bears are. They're like a kid getting caught with a cookie jar most of the time. So he's just like, whoop, gotta go. And then all of a sudden I forgot that there's this poor girl out in a tent who's been awake the whole time hearing this bear going through. So all of a sudden she runs out of her tent screaming. And so Micah got pet by a black bear and we spent the whole rest of the night awake, afraid that it was going to come back.
That's a heck of a story. Well, thank you for watching Echoes of the Hunt and listening on YouTube and Spotify and Apple Podcasts. Check out Spirit of Clash.
We got GrukaManufacturing.com, Spirit of Clash V4. We'll have the underscores in, or my personal Eric the Smith. I do some mountaineering stuff in there too. It's not just all guns, but I put both on there.
We're trying to get them on YouTube.
Hopefully. We'll try it out.
And thanks again.
Absolutely, man. Good seeing you.
Good seeing you. If you've got a story to share, there's always a place around the fire. Head to echoesofthehunt.com and let us know you want to tell yours.